Support for WERU comes from the Mabel Wadsworth Women's Health Center, providing comprehensive reproductive and sexual health services for all women of all ages and all stages since 1984. Insurance, Maine Care, Dirigo, and self-pay accepted. MabelWadsworth.org. Support for WERU also comes from Wellspring Massage Therapy, 49 Water Street, downtown Bluehill, located upstairs at the Bluehill Center for Yoga, offering a variety of massage modalities as well as preferred provider oncology massage sessions. Appointment scheduling at 469-0059 or wellspringmassagetherapy.org.
I'm Fritz Homans, and meet me every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4 at the Blues Station. We'll be departing on track 145 for a new destination every week, where we'll journey across the country in search of the best toe-tapping blues music around that's guaranteed to make your soul sing. The Blues Station, every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 4, here on WERU 89.9 FM and streaming live at weru.org. Blues to make you feel good. All aboard for the Blues Station.
Support for WERU comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
You're listening to WERU 89.9 Blue Hill and 99.9 in Bangor, streaming at weru.org. A voice of many voices, volunteer-powered, and listener-supported. Stay tuned for healthy options.
Hi, this is Cynthia Swan. Welcome to Healthy Options. Today, my guest is Kristen Jacobson. Kristen Jacobson is a registered nurse, a master herbalist, and a professional energy healer. She's completing her studies this spring with the Barbara Brennan School of Healing in Miami, Florida, which is a 4-year study program leading to certification as a Brennan Healing Science practitioner. Kristen has taught many workshops in self-care, herbalism, guided imagery, and visualization. She has worked for 20 years as a nurse with women giving birth and their infants. She lives in the Belfast area and currently seeks clients for individual energy healing sessions. She's here today to talk about energy medicine, energy healing, the human energy field, and the 4 dimensions of our human beingness. Her contact information, look up her Facebook page, Kristen Jacobson, Belfast, Maine, and her email, heartblessing3@yahoo.com. So let's get started. Let's dive right into it. What is energy medicine?
Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
Thanks for having me here.
My pleasure.
Energy medicine is working within the human energy field to clear, to balance, to charge, and align the field. And the reason that's important is because we are as healthy as the amount of life force energy that moves through us. And so the energy healer helps to clear and balance the field, align the intentionality of the field so that the person can really take from the universal energy field around us and create a healthier system on many levels.
So I want to talk to you a little bit, Kristen, about for people who don't know, because you chose Barbara Brennan School of Healing. Who is, for those who don't know, who is Barbara Brennan? Why did you choose that school?
Well, Barbara Brennan began the Barbara Brennan School of Healing in the 80s. She was an atmospheric physicist for years with NASA, and her specialty was energy fields. She was also a psychotherapist, brilliant woman, and what she started to notice was that the human energy field was pretty dynamic and in flux, and she started to see it and experience how it changed depending upon the life experience and the health or disease of the clients.
So she was a NASA scientist,
Yes.
and then so the whole idea of the energy field, this concept, I mean, to people who look at quantum, all the quantum physics, everything's about energy. But for people who are new to this concept, what does that mean, an energy body?
Well, we are energy. I mean, we are creators. We manifest a physical body because of our energetic field and intention. So the energy field exists even before our physical form.
Okay, and so energy is always shifting, right?
Yes.
It's always changing.
Yes, it's a movement. Mm-hmm.
So in terms of energy, then what is energy healing?
Energy healing is creating a condition in the body which is designed to manifest, to create. And energy healing comes from when a system is fully charged and creating with a purpose that is conscious. So oftentimes we are creating in our lives conditions of health or disease or joy or sorrow, depending on a level of intention that we're not even aware of. So we are creators, and becoming more aware of how it is that we're creating and why we're creating what we create helps us make different choices.
Okay, so is this kind of like where we get into the psychology of this, like the unconscious mind, that there's a part of us that isn't conscious of what we're doing, that...
That's a part of it.
So part of the whole energy is the psychological component as well?
The psychological component is one dimension of our experience, and that is the auric dimension, is where our human mind, our mental capacities exist within our energy field. There's actually 4 dimensions that I am learning to work with through the Barbara Brennan School. And the human mind and the mental concepts is within the auric dimension. But then there's divine mind. There is intentionality before the auric field.
All right. Well, before we get into those layers, which we definitely wanted to talk about today, I want to and you mentioned you get asked this anyway. I mean, there's a lot of us who practice things like zero balancing and Reiki and all these other forms of energy medicine. So how does this, the way that you work, how is it different? Is it different from like emotional freedom technique? How is it different? Mm-hmm. And how might it be similar?
Well, it's similar in the way, I'm not familiar with a lot of the different types of modalities of energy work, but as far as Reiki, which is a natural go-to when people think about energy work, because it is probably the most well-known of the modalities of energy work. It's similar to Reiki in that the practitioner is a channel for the energy to move for the highest good of the client. So in the way that we're tapping into the same source out of the universal field, divine mind, the God consciousness, and using that, and we are the channels for that as the healers. In that way, it's similar. But as we bring it through our field and offer it an invitation to the client's field, what the practitioners understand is that the energy goes where it may be needed, and that's true. But it also goes where it is allowed to go, and that is up to the person individually in their field, whether they accept it or not. And so so I mentioned how it is similar, that we're tapping into the same source, and we're offering an invitation for the individual to receive the energy. There are oftentimes areas in the person's field that are blocked, that have limited belief systems about receiving the work, about utilizing the work. So though it is offered an invitation, if there are blocks and a hindrance somewhere on the different levels of the receiver's field, they may not receive it where it's most needed. Perhaps it would be rejected even unconsciously. So in the Brennan healing science work, though we're also offering the invitation for the healing, we're also seeing and helping to move the shifts and blocks that may be preventing the person from actually healing in certain ways.
So part of this, part of your study is how to, well, it's all about how to work with the energy and how to see it, feel it, yes, on all these different levels, mm-hmm, and then direct it?
So, yes. I'm learning to work within the different field, the levels of the field. And that means a lot of self-awareness on my part and what's happening in my field. And when I am in relationship with another's field, from healer to client, I am constantly monitoring my own intentions and motivation and what my field is doing. So I have to embody the work in order to offer it to the recipient. So where the energy is flowing in me means that I'm a clear channel for the work, and the individual, I can adjust my frequencies in my field to access those places in that person. And so there's a lot of training involved in adjusting my consciousness in order to get into that person's field and make the offer for change, basically charging these areas that are unconscious or in forgetting, in blocked. And I basically go in there with an attitude of curiosity of what is here now. That was a big tool for me, is the witness, asking and experiencing, which is just with curiosity, seeing what's here now. And it's not a voyeuristic exploration. So it's a question, what's here now? And the person who's I'm working with, their field is going to present what's ready to be moved and shifted and healed for me. And that's what I will see. That's what I will be invited to work with. So there's never force. It's with a deep reverence for the fact that this is sensitive work. And the invitation, like I said, is there with real deep respect for how it's functioning within the whole system, because we hold on to these different images, belief systems. We have blocks in our field for a reason. You know, usually it's a defensive mechanism that we've become habituated with in our life. We've all come in here, to this life with the same sort of desire to create, mm-hmm, and our experience in life oftentimes sets up a circumstance where we begin to defend ourselves in insidious ways. So sometimes really obvious ways. But that those defenses live within the field. And so I am very sensitive to that. So I want to create safety.
If you're just joining us, I'm having a conversation with registered nurse, master herbalist, and energy medicine practitioner, Kristen Jacobson. And this is Cynthia Swan for WERU's Healthy Options. And so we're in speaking about energy medicine and taking that further. So you've talked about how it's kind of you distinguish this form of work from Reiki and some of the other energy medicine modalities. But for someone who's not at all attuned to energy medicine work, why is it important? I mean, if someone has a physical injury and they go to a physician and they get the right physical medicine, they will heal. How does the energy medicine piece fit into that?
Well, it doesn't replace that for certain, because we are multidimensional. Our experience is multidimensional. And so somebody with a broken leg is going to do very well having it set physically. Yeah. And I'll refer them to an emergency department who can handle that. But but along with, say, that broken leg, there's a lot of adjustments energetically that may help to heal them physically even faster. But perhaps even before the break in the leg, there was some imbalance, some misalignment, something that led up to that.
That could have
accident.
Brought that on?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Norman Shealy, who created the American Holistic Medical Association, often says, and there are studies that they've been doing for years about stress and how in our culture, a lot of us have, not everyone, but many people deny that there is such a thing as stress and that it's all in our head or so on, but it can be physical, emotional, mental, environmental stressors. Sure. Environmental toxicants, but also emotional and even spiritual. Mm-hmm. So, and his claim is that these stressors are many of the reasons that people even have an accident, where, something comes out of the blue and just kind of slows them down or stops them in their tracks because there's this underlying some form of stress going. So that would be like an energetic something, right? That maybe so energy. What I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that everything is energy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So your thoughts are energy, your feelings are energy, your physical body is made up of energy, and then you have several fields within this.
Yes.
So talk about those fields. What are those? Many of us have seen the Kirlian photography of a human being where the aura is looked at. Are we talking about auras? And is that the whole picture? Is there more to it? What does that all mean?
I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but definitely the auric dimension is one dimension of our human beingness.
So when we say the auric dimension, for those who have never heard that, what is that? What's the definition of the auric dimension?
That is one of our more subtle bodies. We have our physical body, which is the most obvious.
So that's our flesh and bones, what we can touch,
more,
feel.
I guess you could say dense. It's the most dense. And then on a little higher vibrational frequency, so a more subtle, less obvious to our physical senses, is the auric dimension, our auric field, which extends out from our physical body and interpenetrates through our physical body. It extends out of our physical body usually a couple of feet, maybe 1 to 3 feet around the person's physical body, maybe more or less depending on the situation or the person and the different levels of the field.
Is this what Kirlian photography picks up when didn't that start with the Russians? I want to say it did. I know not everyone loves the Russians right now in this country, but I mean, didn't Kirlian photography start with them? Wasn't it that? I can't remember if it was their research or, I know Barbara Brennan.
Oh, she's used that Kirlian photography to demonstrate certain shifts in the fields that she was already reading. She didn't need the cameras to say what she was seeing. But that's the
auric field.
Yes.
And when we talk about auric field, is that like the Ayurvedic chakras? Is that the color?
Yep. The chakras are contained within the auric field.
So they're a part of the field.
Yes, they're
not
part
all
of the auric dimension. They're not all of it.
Okay.
But the chakras are a part of the auric dimension. So we have our physical dimension, and we all agree on what the physical dimension is, right? We all know it's like what we're touching right now when I'm patting my lap. So the auric dimension exists right along with it, but it's less obvious to us most of the time. Through the Brennan Healing Science training, Barbara Brennan really believed that everyone is capable of learning the work. And through her training, I have been trained to open up something called my high sense perception so that I can see more about what else is there other than the physical. So in the auric field, there are 7 layers of the auric energetic field. And those 7 layers vibrate at different frequencies. They have different purposes in the creation of our life experience. In the auric field are the chakras, and their work is to pull in life force energy from the universal field around us and to charge and balance and clear out the field so that we can continue to create a healthy experience for ourselves, both physically but also emotionally and mentally and spiritually. So its work is really to move the energy through the field, and it does it in different ways depending on the level of the field. And the chakras that I'm sure there's more than 7, but I've been trained to work with the 7 chakras, and they relate, in different ways to different aspects of our life and how the energy moves through the different areas of the chakras. And depending on where the chakras are positioned, it feeds different organs and different experiences in our.
So we're
bodies.
magnets. We're energy magnets. Yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So there's all this going on around us, and there's the energy around us, protons, electrons, neutrons, whatever you call them, quarks. I forget what they're all called now, and in quantum physics. And then we also are made of this same stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so we're magnetizing things to us. How can anyone stay in balance? If if everything can affect us, how do you balance that?
There are a lot of things somebody can do to balance, but some of the things we all need are the same. Sometimes it certainly helps to work with somebody who manages energy, and to help when there's imbalances in the field. But largely our work is to be here now, like be grounded in our fields, so that our field isn't top heavy or front heavy or back heavy or small on the bottom. I mean, our job is to fully be here, inhabited in this lifetime now. So our field reflects that when we are grounded, when the energy moves in an even fashion around and through us. So that it's not habitually shunted into certain directions, so that we're undercharged in certain areas, overcharged in other areas.
What might that look like, Kristen, if someone's undercharged in a specific area? Can you give an example, or overcharged in another area? How might that be exhibited in the physical world?
Okay. So, so let's say that somebody's field is what I would see as top heavy, so that they're undercharged down by their feet and they're overcharged way up high. Their field might extend way up above their heads and get really narrow towards the base. Okay. So as you can imagine, that person is really probably active in their mind, active in their thinking, really not a lot of support. And on the bottom. So maybe they don't feel really stable. So perhaps if they're not feeling really stable, they're not feeling really safe when life feels like it's coming at them, So they're perhaps that they'd be prone to an aggressive, defensive nature of sort of pushing forward, and they don't have a lot of stability down low. So up high, they're really active. So they're
so
really.
It's like their mind is overactive?
Yeah, perhaps their mind is overactive.
Or maybe they're nervous, or they worry? Or...
Yes, yeah, a lot happening way up high, not enough down low.
So what might the opposite of that present in the physical world, where there's a lot below and not a whole lot up top, like a cone head?
yeah.
How would that look? What would that...
That person might be very connected down low and here. But what comes to mind is sort of a poor little Eeyore, sort of right here in the thick of everything. I can't see my way out of this.
Oh, totally
big,
depressed
mess, perhaps. Yes,
because Eeyore's like the real damp cloth on everything.
Yep.
So that kind of character.
And the one okay, so if we're at Winnie the Pooh,
Winnie the Pooh character,
this is perfect,
right?
Actually. So Rabbit would have been that other field I was describing, which is like,
yes, hyper.
Like just getting here, getting there, pushing forward. You got to do this, got to do that. Just not. But Rabbit is running from fear. I mean,
and
really,
scared,
it's
right?
Yes, fearful. Experience.
So these are we're talking in stereotypes. But these are realms of how the energy might express itself.
Yeah. In
the physical being.
Right.
So how do you fix that? As an energy medicine practitioner, how do you fix that?
Practitioner.
And can you?
Yes. You
can?
Yes, it can be absolutely healed, all of that. how I would begin to fix that is to establish contact with the person in the field, and I might even put my hands on the person's body and really sink into the field and just feel what's there. And that's what I would literally be asking energetically is, what's here now? And I would wait for the response, because I might think I have all kinds of ideas about how to fix that, but I might, it might be completely different than what I think needs to happen. So I'm asking, I'm with curiosity and with an intention.
So you're not you're using your thinking mind, your reasoning mind, but there's something else that's guiding you.
I'm really cautious about my reasoning mind. Yes,
okay.
Yes. I don't want to have my own images about how things are going to help this other person.
Is it intuition?
Yes, a lot of it is intuition.
But you have to really trust that.
It's really, I do, more and more so. It's called high sense perception. It's really opening up more of me so that I can see more of you and be in relationship with more of you. And so it comes from relationship and contact. And so when I'm in contact with the other person's field and I am there with an intention to be of service with the highest good of all involved, and that is my prayer every time, then I open up the possibilities of, what is here, and I go with what is presenting itself. So I'm not snooping around looking with an agenda. So I'm constantly monitoring what's my motivation here. Do I want to be this great healer who's got all the answers for you? No, I just want to be present with what I have and see what it is in your field that's ready to be moved and shifted, changed in some way that I can be of service.
Now, in this work, is the person lying down on a massage table? Are they seated?
Most of the time, at some point, somebody is laying down on a massage table, fully clothed, so that I can move energy through the field and walk my hands up the field by putting my hands on their feet and their ankles, perhaps over their joints, like their knees.
And is the is what is received? Is it immediate?
Sometimes it's really profound and right away, and other times the effects are more subtle. Because when somebody's field is habitual in a certain pattern for so long, an abrupt change would be overwhelming. It would be too much. It'd be really hard to integrate all of that all at once. So it depends on the readiness of the person to make a shift and a move in their consciousness and their energy patterns.
And so why would someone go to an energy medicine practitioner? Why would they go? What are some of the reasons why people come?
Well, sometimes it's a physical pain. Typically, it's a discomfort of some kind. Oftentimes, it's physical pain, but it might be emotional pain or a spiritual feeling of disconnection and a longing for meaningful life. If something's missing.
So it can be any level where it can be physical,
mental,
emotional.
Mental discomfort of some sort. There are all kinds of reasons, but somebody's uncomfortable somewhere, and a lot of times people come to me and they know exactly what the trouble is, and other times they don't. They might be experiencing habitual patterns in their life experience that they're like recreating, like an undermining their own efforts.
They keep living something.
Or like attachments to, prior relationships. Relational cords exist in the field that keep us sort of
hooked
stuck
into something.
Yes, exactly.
So people are hooked
even if
in.
it's not what we consciously want.
But psychotherapy can't move it.
Right. Yeah. That belongs to the
that
mental
belongs to
realm.
This mental, emotional, spiritual realm, this energy realm.
What's that?
That, like, if there's a psychological conundrum or someone is in therapy.
The psychology is only one piece of this very large picture of who we are, and a lot of this work. Some of it is intellectual, but so much of it is not intellectual. It might be a real experience. It's very experiential. It might be feeling. It's definitely about being in deeper contact with what's real in the person, in the time, in the person's totality. It's really much deeper work. Excuse me.
So if you've just joined us, this is Healthy Options. I'm Cynthia Swan. My guest this morning is registered nurse, master herbalist, and professional energy healer Kristen Jacobson. And her email is heartblessing, the numeral number 3, at yahoo.com. You can also find Kristen Jacobson from Belfast, Maine on Facebook. You wanted to talk about, before we go to a break, and I might have to interrupt you before a little earlier, but we'll hit them all. You wanted to talk about our 4 dimensions of being. First of all, what does that mean, the 4 dimensions of being? And what are they?
Okay. So we've already talked about the physical and the auric. Those are 2. The auric containing the chakra system and the 7 levels of the field, and in that contains the mental and emotional experiences, but deeper than the.
And most people are familiar with those concepts.
Like our sense of intuition, of feeling that something isn't right, or, a longing in our heart, those things, like all of these feelings
or an
that
unsettled
happen.
mind.
Yes,
you just can't come to grips with something.
Yeah, what is this that I'm kind of sensing that is an intuitive knowing that happens in the auric level of who we are.
Okay, so that's the auric level.
One level deeper than that is the haric dimension.
Haric?
Yep, hara, H-A-R-A is the hara line, is in the haric dimension.
So is that like the dantian in traditional Chinese medicine?
Yes, the dantian exists on the level of the hara, the haric dimension.
Okay.
So, and that dantian is that single note that holds us here in physical form, and it's located in the haric dimension. If you were looking for the physical point of reference there, it's like right in the center of the pelvis. And from that place, we are grounded down and connected here in our physical life on this earth. A little higher up on the haric line is our soul's longing in our chest.
So it goes right as a straight line right up to the heart?
That's right. We're connected down into the center of the earth, all the way up to our root, into our dantian.
Okay.
It's a level of our intentionality. It's huge. It's very important. And then the line continues up to our soul's longing in our chest, which is connected higher up above our heads to something called our ID point.
IED?
ID, individuation point.
Individuation.
And that is where
which Jung talked about.
Yes, where we extend from the one light of God into this world.
And some call it the soul star.
That's right. Yes, there it is. Yep. So this is talked about in different modalities. This is talked about. It's been talked about forever. Actually, it's nothing new under the sun, right, Cindy? But it's all it's all here, and this is one way to access these places in us. So the haric dimension is really important.
So why is the haric dimension? I mean, I get it when you're talking about it, but what do you mean? Why is it so important?
Because it is about intention and how our hara line is aligned or misaligned, twisted, blocked, broken. Has everything to do with how we create in this world on the level of intention, because we're here as creators. We're here to create in our lives, and we create all the time. So what is the condition of our hara creates whether we move from a place of positive intentionality or effortless intentionality when we're aligned, with the energy of God, or negatively in a negative intention.
How does the haric line get broken?
The haric line gets broken
or give it one example of how the haric line might get broken.
Well, I have seen the haric line broken in different points along, and where it is broken makes a big difference in the person's experience.
Let's say the haric line is broken at the heart level. What might that look like in the outside world?
It might look like someone who doesn't really know where they find meaning in their life. They might not know what is of true value to them. They might not have a lot of connection to what makes them
So they're
joyful.
Isolated? They may be isolated?
They might feel isolated.
So could we say, now I know I'm getting out of the box here really, out there, but
it is a little out there.
But in a broken, all this is a little out there.
It totally is.
And if the heart line is broken in the heart, could this be like where we could see
you lose your sense of purpose? Like, why? What is it that I want in my life? I don't even know.
But could this also, in the outside world, manifest as somebody who does harm? Could be violent?
Certainly, people who are violent are acting from a negative intentionality, and there is a break, a misalignment. There is a distortion somewhere along the level of their hara. That is how we create in a distorted fashion.
So violence on that end of the spectrum would be something wrong in this
level of intentionality.
Of the haric?
There's probably there's stuff in a lot of different levels, but the haric dimension is essential for how we create. And evil exists because of the misalignment in our intentionality. So we're creating.
And what throws that
and
off?
we actually get, with someone who's moving from a negative intention actually gets pleasure. There's negative pleasure attached to negative intention. And the reason that there's pleasure attached to it is because we create with joy. We receive joy from creating. And, if people talk about kids like, acting out because any attention's better than like no attention. Kids are creating. They're creating. We're all creating. And so when we create from a position of a positive intention, we create with joy, but we also create things that are of real value to us and service to humanity and service to ourselves and each other.
Right.
And so when there's a distortion in where we create, there becomes a distorted pleasure that happens. So people can actually receive negative pleasure from creating negatively, and that becomes a vicious cycle of perpetuating evil and violence against each other. So that's a total misalignment and a distortion. And this work can help to heal those things.
But it can only help to heal those things if someone wants that help, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about choice, right? We're here with choices. And so we have choices in how we are. We can stay exactly how we are, or we can we can become more aware and we can be more conscious about how we choose.
So in this haric realm of understanding, I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. In this haric realm of understanding, what if you're centered, but there seems to be chaos because there's energy all the time, and there's chaos or disruption around you? Does that affect your haric field, or is that more your physical and your auric 7 layers?
Chaos around.
If there's chaos around, will that affect you on a haric level? Can that?
Without awareness, without the person aware of their own life experience, yes, it can throw somebody all over the place, which is why it's important for us to really wake up to what's real in us. And sometimes we need help in getting to that place that's real in us. But as we get deeper in these dimensions that we're talking about, we're getting closer and closer to what is the truth in us, which is actually one level deeper than the haric dimension, is our core star, our core essence.
So it's the physical level.
Yep. And then
the auric,
and the
7 layers.
Yep.
The haric line, which is that straight line from the center of the earth, core of the earth, into our physical core in our body, located in the dantian, and then up the heart. So, and it goes all the way up above us to what you call, in this realm of thought, what was it? Divine individuation, or
the individuation point above us, where we extend from the one God, and we extend our light into this world as individuated essence.
So connected but individual.
Exactly, okay. And that's part of our our interest in in being here is to individuate, so we can express our unique
individual
divinity.
Selves.
And so on the level of core, and that's core essence beneath the haric dimension, that's on the level of core, we can see our sameness in our divinity, but we each here embodied in a unique expression of that.
So now you're getting into that innermost level. Am I right in saying you were working from the outside in?
Exactly.
So from the haric line, then in this realm of thinking,
it's a little hard because we're explaining something rationally that isn't
rational. it's all
right.
Energy.
So I get that it's hard to just sort of wrap your brain around because it really isn't on the level of thinking
right.
so
But I think that's true of what you had said earlier of energy medicine in general. It's an experiential thing. It's difficult sometimes to talk about it because we don't have the vocabulary and the words.
It's so true.
But
right.
when someone has an experience
trying to
of
articulate
it,
and is a challenge.
Yeah, and they're moved, they're like, you're like, wow, what just happened? Sometimes there's no vocabulary.
It's so true.
But the innermost you're talking about is this core, and the core being, is that like, what is the core being again? What's the definition of that?
That is our divinity. That is that place in us that is unchangeable. It is where we recognize our holiness, our sacredness, our divinity. It is the part of us that, changes form, but is always. It was before we were incarnated. It will be there after we are gone.
Is this what the yogis would pretty much say?
Like your inner light,
your inner
light.
In other words, that when the yogis talk about the gurus, you shed the skin, you shed the physical.
Yes.
The core remains.
That's right.
And that energy. And then I'm thinking of Yogananda's book.
Autobiography of a Yogi?
Yes, and he talks about his guru who passes, and then he sees him, literally has a vision of him, a visualization as these molecules of light.
Yes.
And it's so real, and the yogi says it is real. It's almost like Christ. I mean, it's so
yes,
like
it is.
It's so
like
out there that it's like, I remember when I read it, I was like, I had to keep rereading it because I had never heard of that before.
Yeah, I know this. A lot of this sounds just way too far out there, but it's actually not. We're actually living these things right now. Talking about it is
certainly with technology. Look what we have with all the technologies now. Laser. For those of you listening, you're listening to WERU Community Radio 89.9 Blue Hill, 99.9 Bangor, and we're streaming WERU.org. My name is Cynthia Swan. Our show is Energy Medicine. My guest, Kristen Jacobson, a registered nurse, master herbalist, and a professional energy healer. Her email, should you want to get a hold of her, is heartblessing, number 3, at yahoo.com. We're going to take a real short break, and then we're going to open this up to calls. Welcome back. This is Healthy Options with Cynthia Swan as your host, and we're talking about energy medicine today. My guest is Kristen Jacobson, registered nurse, master herbalist, and professional energy healer. Some of you may have remembered her from a couple years back. She did a show here about herbalism as well, because you've been involved with that for, over 15 years, your herbalism work. So the call-in number, should you wish to call, is 866-625-9378. I'll give that to you again, 866-625-9378. I just got Kristen, we had just talked about the 4 dimensions of our being, the physical, the auric, the haric, and the core, which you, and then this question, John brought this question in, and of course we're open to calls should you wish to have a question or comment for Kristen. And he said some people are sensitive to cell phone energy, television. I think this is the EMF, all the electromagnetic frequencies. That's what I'm thinking. High tension lines, computer. Can this be cured through this kind of hands-on healing, or is it faith healing, or is it, how can this be cured through energy medicine, the work that you do? Can that help with people with those sensitivities?
Well, certainly there is a lot of frequencies going around in the life that we live in here. Can this be cured? a person's sensitivity, a person who's sensitive, energetically, they're picking up a lot because there's a lot there. And I would encourage anyone who is sensitive in that way, to do what they can to create an environment if they can.
Well,
get
yeah,
away
like
from
if
but
you have a modem, unplug your modem at least at night while you sleep,
things.
so you don't have those.
So physically, you can set up a supportive environment, but beyond that, there's a lot you have no control over.
Right.
And just existing in this world means we live among a lot of frequencies, and so I would encourage anybody who's really sensitive in that way to really get in contact deep with the core essence.
So you're talking about the innermost, deepest level
yes.
is the core. So you're thinking this is a core issue?
No, I'm not. I'm just...
sorry, it's my mind. My mind always wants to
by
give it
contacting in the center helps then to expand that person's own individual field so that they are perhaps radiating at a higher vibrational frequency themselves. And as it takes a focused intention, and perhaps an energy worker who works within these realms can help that person make this contact that I'm talking about. And then expanding their own energetic frequency outward and identifying for themselves the boundary on the edges of their own field. And strengthening their boundary is certainly possible by utilizing their own intention and creative potential. So they actually are creating like literally a bubble effect around themselves.
Oh, so you're okay. So you don't have to, well, you may have to, if it's that bad, live in a bubble. I mean, a physical bubble.
No, you don't have to live in a physical bubble because you can create an energetic bubble.
So you're saying you can create an energetic bubble that will make you less sensitive to the outside world?
Right. So that you can maintain your own
boundaries?
You can, yes, it's about boundaries energetically, for sure. And that you can really identify where you are and where that is and actually make that separation if you can.
So it's strengthening of that innermost...
Raising your vibrational, it's like a charge in your field. And then making deep core contact. And it's really, a lot of it is using the power of our imagination and visualization. I mean, these are gifts. Imagination is a really good gift because
they say imagination lays the tracks for the reality train.
I love that. It's the truth.
Yeah.
And so your energy doesn't follow your intent, and your imagination can help you set up your intention. Okay. And then the energy moves with that. So what I am imagining is that person fills with their own light and frequency. That vibration that exists deep within and extends it outward through the different levels of their field, outward, and then and creates a safe container for all of this experience. So the boundary, they're creating a healthier boundary on the outside of edges of their field. They can actually do that for themselves. They can put themselves in an energetic bubble.
So it doesn't have to be a physical bubble. It's an energetic bubble. And it's about strengthening the deepest layer.
And
which
just
is
keeping
their
your
core.
charge high, a high charge in the field. And you can do that with the help from an energy healer, but you also can do that by making real meticulously honest contact with yourself and in meeting your needs on all the levels of the field, physical, auric.
So all those levels. So I would imagine if it's a real core issue, you've got all these other layers too. There would be physical things you have to do physically. There are emotional things, right?
What's nice about working with, like, in the deeper levels of the field, like any adjustments that happen on the, like, say, the haric dimension, any adjustments, well, the core is what it is and doesn't need any adjustment, just needs the opportunity to shine. So the core is perfect. And the haric, any adjustments that happen in the haric dimension set forth a new vibration for the entire field. And for the field, the levels of the field that are beyond it, like the auric and the physical, any changes on the deeper levels set forth a new vibration that knock loose blocks, that break up congestion, that actually create a major change rolling forward and out into the other levels of the field. So any adjustment in the hierarchy and the level of this person's intention, like the very sensitive person, an adjustment in their intention of how they are being in this world with all of those frequencies, that gets aligned differently, and that kind of moves out and creates change. So perhaps on a physical level, they're less sensitive. On an emotional level, they're less sensitive.
Okay, so it's on all these levels. So you're saying that this is not just a physical dilemma for the chemically sensitive or people sensitive to energy and EMFs, that there is an emotional component as well as is that true? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I'm not exactly saying that.
You're not saying that.
It may or may not be true. I mean, depends on the individual.
So it's different for everybody.
It is,
you can't
for sure.
categorize it. Okay, that's me wanting to put it in its compartments.
Right,
okay.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. It is hard because you do want to come. Yeah, I mean that's part of.
So this work is very individualistic. It's
very individual.
When you're working with somebody, do you are you talking to them? Like I know in a lot of these treatments, there's no conversation. It's like you're being worked on energetically. When you're working with someone, are you talking?
It sometimes yes and sometimes no. It depends on what is happening. But with a big shift in the on the hierarchic dimension, no, that's not really any talking. It's like aligning a structural process. And on the auric dimension, there may be more conversation. Well, not so much chit chat, but it's conversation about what's happening and a connection with what's going on in that level for the person.
You're listening to WERU. Kristen Jacobson is my guest. I'm Cynthia Swan, Healthy Options. If you have a comment, we only have a few minutes left. 866-625-9378. And that number is 866-625-9378. I want you to, in the few minutes remaining, I just want to kind of segue into this. Kristen, what is your favorite story in the few minutes remaining? What's your favorite story of what you've experienced, either working in this realm or seen, that has been a real aha or has shifted your life?
Oh my gosh, there's been a lot of them. I mean, this work is so amazing to me. I mean, I'm constantly overwhelmed with awe in what I'm experiencing with this work. Gosh, I don't know about a favorite story, but I remember why I fell in love with the work.
Okay, why?
Well, I had, excuse me, I had just finished up my 3-year study program, an herbal and spiritual studies program in San Antonio, where I was living, and I had been introduced to the Barbara Brennan's books, Hands of Light and Light Emerging, through that program as a recommended read, and so I saw this flyer where she was doing a half-day workshop and an introduction to her work in Austin, which was an hour north of where I was living. So I went up there and took the workshop and saw her do the work, and I was just blown away by what was happening. This woman, a woman she was working on, was very ill. And she had cancer, and she was very, very weak, and she'd been through a lot, and you could see that, and she was clearly in a lot of pain, and
physical pain?
Yeah, physical pain. And she looked anemic, and she was pale. She looked really rough. But as Barbara was working on her, she at first was addressing the rest of us who were observing. But then she got really deep into what she was doing, and she was, really in deep contact with this woman in relationship with her field. And she was describing to the woman what was happening in the field. And so much was happening for that woman.
You mean you saw visibly things shifting?
Visibly things shifting. I saw the woman who walked on that stage was totally different from the woman who walked off.
In just that one short...
Oh, my God. Yeah, it was about 45 minutes. Barbara worked on this woman, and she stopped addressing the rest of us who were observing.
We do have a question, so I'm going to go ahead and take this. Welcome, caller. If you want to give your first name, your town, and your question or comment for Kristen.
Yeah, hi, Kristen. I have a question for you. I'm Deb from Toledo, Ohio.
Hi,
we
Deb.
have been getting a lot of violence here, and I know you're always talking about working on yourself as opposed to the other person. How can we reflect ourselves onto what's going on in our world right now? Is there any way we can help to change this?
What we are in a position of changing is ourselves, and that is our responsibility in being here. That is our most important responsibility, and perhaps the only thing we can change. And once we really own that in ourselves, we will have contributed our important contribution.
So I just want to thanks, Deb, for your call. But I want to. Did she? Do you feel she answered that? Do you have more to the question, or?
So I kind of understand what you're saying. It's like change ourselves, and then we may be a mirror to other people.
So by change ourselves, I think what I really mean is by being a presence that is authentic and whole, where we have moved through whatever our blocks in our energy field and in our life experience, and the things that we, a lot of times, violence exists outside of us because of the violence that lives inside of us. So where are we withholding love? Where are we not shining with our essence? And when we can fully embody ourselves with love and essence, we become that place that sets a tone for the other.
Okay. So what about gangs, that we have here now?
Well, that's probably more than
a lot of negative intention.
That's a lot of negative attention. But I think what I'm getting is you're saying that to look at ourselves of where we carry our own violence and to work to heal that. This reminds me, your comment, I'm putting words in your mouth, but it reminds me of a Gandhi comment that I like. Oh. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Yeah, that's true. It's like starting with ourselves. If we don't like what's going on outside,
then we have to consider what's going on inside.
And what do we need to change? And that's not about
that everyone
blame or
has
shame,
free. No, there's no blame, there's no shame. And we all have free will. We're all creators. We all have that. We all have creative energy. Right. We all are here to create. And so in a gang, and people who are, acting out violently, they are creating, and they're creating from a position of negative intention, and they do have the free will to choose. And it's a hard one to be with. And, but because when we honor our own abilities to choose, we can just hold that awareness that everyone has that same ability and right to create. And so
it's not about good or bad in this whole realm of being. It's about what is.
When we can, as people, reflect ourselves from our essence into the world, and when we can meet another from that position of essence, we really can recognize the divinity in each other. There will be no more violence ever against another.
Okay.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for your call, Deb.
Sure. Thank you.
We've got literally 2 minutes remaining. So I just want to, in the last minute, is there anything, Kristen, that we haven't said or that you might want to say?
In relation to that last comment, because I've been really troubled in my life with, violence in the world, violence against other people, and certainly children and animals. This stuff really has affected me deeply in my life. And what I'm noticing is how to notice the divine spark in the other, even with all this heinous activity. And if we can put out prayer with the connection to the divine spark in the other, and perhaps if we could imagine kind of sending it up to and contacting the highest good in the other, and putting prayer from my highest good to your highest good, and just with respect. And I do think we can begin to impact the other, even on those subtle realms, and the other doesn't even understand consciously.
On that comment, and that was great. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Kristen Jacobson.
Thank you,
for
Cindy.
being my guest. This is signing off, Cynthia Swan, and thanks to John Greenman for engineering the show.
Support for WERU comes from Penobscot Bay Press, committed to providing community news and information, publishing 3 weekly newspapers, The Weekly Packet, Island Advantages, and The Castine Patriot, as well as the Bay Community Register, the Summer Seasonal Guide, and